Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Before we get started, if anyone out there has a story that they would like to share here on the show, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. I'll leave that email address in the description, so you can go there and type it, from there, or cut and paste it, however you want to do that. If you get a Bigfoot story, Dogman, supernatural, paranormal, any kind of mysterious story that you think is interesting, just shoot me an email and we'll try to get you on. If you have emailed me in the past, I'm kind of getting the studio set back up. If you've emailed me before and you had something that was a good story and I haven't contacted you back, you can, if you can, please find the email that you emailed me from at first and email me on that same thread, so that I don't have more than one email. And if you can't find it, then shoot me another email and we'll get you on. If it's a good, interesting story, we'll have you on. And if anyone wants to contribute to help me with this show, because the beginning of the year is the worst time of the year for YouTubers, so contributions are very much helpful and appreciated. If you want to contribute, you can go to a link in the description, PayPal me. It's really user friendly, and I appreciate everyone who helps out with that. So God bless everyone who has made a contribution in the past. Well, today we have a fellow named Jonathan, who is a veteran. I thought he had some kind of cool stories from the Middle East there when he was deployed. Some kind of supernatural kind of things that he's been sharing, and some of the stuff he hasn't even told me yet. We'll just hear it when he tells us. But he's going to share some stuff from the Middle East. Kind of give you a gist and the feel of what that was like over there from a spiritual, supernatural standpoint. And also, he's got a couple cryptid stories that he's collected from friends in the military also, and I think you're going to find this stuff interesting. So anyway, let's let Jonathan introduce himself. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, everyone. Jonathan. I live in Adolphus, Kentucky. I'm a bluegrass native myself right now. So.
Okay. Yeah, where do you live at in Kentucky?
Adolphus, right near. I'm on the Tennessee line, north of Nashville, about an hour, near a town called Westmoreland, Tennessee, okay. Or Gallatin, Tennessee.
All right.
I border that area. Or I'm south of Bowling Green, let's say, about 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit to the east or west. I mean,
I can throw a rock at across my yard, and I'm touching Tennessee. I'm right on the line.
Yeah. So kind of western Tennessee, sort of south.
Yeah. If you shoot northeast of Nashville, just a touch. I'm right on the Sumner County, Kentucky line.
Okay. All right. Well, good old Kentucky boy. Awesome.
Yeah. I love this state. I'll never live anywhere else, that's for sure.
Yeah. It is a really beautiful state. All kinds of great lakes here, that you can go to and do all kinds of all types of fishing, really. We just have tremendous, beautiful lakes. We have mountainous hills, and just it's a beautiful place. And we have the Daniel Boone National Forest that goes all the way through the state. If you like to do some Bigfoot hunting, that's the good place to go right there. And then we have land between the lakes if you like to go Dogman looking,
Mammoth Cave also.
Yeah, Mammoth Cave. There's some good stuff there too, man. I'm telling you, this is a very interesting state, that's for sure. Well, let's start with your stories of like the cryptid stuff with the Bigfoot and the other Catman creature, and and any of those that you can think of, and then we'll move into your other stories from Iraq and the other places you were deployed.
Okay. This was encountered by my squad leader, who told me in person probably a few hours after the encounter. It was in 2006 at Fort Benning, Georgia, in a mechanized unit. They were doing a training exercise called the Table 12, where pretty much they mobilize and do a lot of strategic type maneuvers with the vehicles and dismounts at times. Well, he was in an open field and surrounded by the open field, in a 360 all around him were trees, and the distance between him being in the middle of the open field and the tree line was about 150 yards. I was with him earlier that day, and I'm about 5'6", and he was waiting for me for some reason, but I apparently got a Humvee ride back to the headquarters, so he was waiting for me and he got confirmation that I took a Humvee ride, and he seen a figure that was about my height that was in the wood line, just out of the tree line into the grass. And he, yelled for me. He's like, "Hey, Johnny, what are you doing? Come on, get back to the vehicle." And he noticed that it wouldn't move. It just stood there. So he got his flashlight. And the military had really good weapons flashlights at those times that you could detach from your weapon. And he shined the flashlight, and when he shined the flashlight, he could make out that it almost looked like a black panther standing up on its hind legs with pointed ears, but it wasn't a panther. It looked, I don't know, I guess humanoid in some aspects, the shape and size of its body. And he said as soon as he shined on it, he just noticed it for a flash of its body being strange, and it was about 5'6", 5'5", about my height. And he said he noticed the eyes were yellow, and it looked like a cat. And he said as soon as the light shined on it, it took a step back, and then it got on its belly and started pushing itself backwards into the wood line, like what was that scary movie I told you about? The girl that crawls. What's that one scary movie where she crawls?
The Ring.
The Ring. Yeah. From what he described, when I watched The Ring, that's how he described it, was walking back, because he actually lay down and showed me how it walked back, and it looked just like The Ring, but backwards. And he told me he seen that, and he buttoned up the vehicle, and he rolled out of there, but that was that Catman.
But he said at first it was walking on two legs?
It was standing up on two legs.
Wow. And then the eye shine was, and he said it had a cat-like head on it, and...
Yeah, he said at first, you know how like sometimes these people who see these Bigfoot or Wolfman encounters, their subconscious, their mind will print what they think they're seeing at first?
Right, yeah.
Their mind's trying to decode what they're seeing, and he said at first he was like, what the hell is a Black Panther doing out here? But then he realized that it was standing on its hind legs and was more human-esque than it was panther.
Right.
And it was as soon as he hit the flashlight on it, that's when it took that step back. So. Wow,
that's fascinating. What's so strange about that is yesterday, I was telling you, I was talking to this girl here in Kentucky. I went to an appointment yesterday, and I just so happened to end up talking about YouTube stuff. And this girl, she gave me her number and stuff because she's going to come on the show and share some of the stories that she has. But she said she was out in the woods, and she heard something like kind of above her a little bit, like it was breathing. And I might be kind of messing the story up a tad, but the gist of it's going to be good. But she was like looking around trying to figure out what the heck it was, and she saw these eyes that were glowing kind of green color, greenish yellow. And she said, and what struck her about it was that usually eye shine, there needs to be a light source to make your eyes glow, And so she thought of that, and I thought that was interesting that she was thinking, what's making these eyes look like that, with this glow to it, like a light source. and she said it looked like a panther laying on the tree limb. And she got kind of scared, because it was a huge panther laying on this tree limb. And she started kind of backing away, and trying to, move out of the area a little bit. And she said this thing stood up on two legs, and then basically jumped to another limb and shot out of there somehow or another. It got, I don't know if it jumped on the ground or what, but she said the thing stood up on two legs like a man. And I haven't really had many people tell Catman stories. I've heard of the stories before, but it's just so interesting that you are telling one, and then I heard one yesterday. It's fascinating,
What
these.
part of Kentucky was it?
I think it was Garrett County. I know that she said she lived a couple hours away. And I recall, I think she said Garrett County.
Where's that in Kentucky? Do you know?
Yeah, that's in Kentucky, kind of north over by Louisville.
Okay.
And Garrett County's got a lot of Bigfoot encounters. It's got, I think it's the state with the most Bigfoot reports. From what I've seen, like where you go to a site and it has, documented cases. That was one of the states with the highest number from the BFRO. Of course, that doesn't mean that's the most encounters, but anyway, I thought that was fascinating. That Catman, that just, you don't hear that much, And
Quite synchronistic for for that to happen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, this guy, what do you think about it?
Well, we were used to wild pigs and boar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are common. But from him, he felt like it looked like a panther, but it was different. I mean, it was just so quick because your brain is trying to analyze what you're seeing. I mean, a lot of times people freeze, or you never know what people are encountering when it's going through their mind. But from what he said, he felt like it was like a cat standing up, but more human-esque. And I think what scared him the most was how it pushed itself back into the woods. I think that bothered him the most out of all the things.
With the weird walk, you mean?
Yeah, how it got itself. Yeah, because it pushed itself back into the wood line. How it just laid down. Because I've never heard of a cat. I mean, you ever seen cats walk backwards? It doesn't look very easy for cats to walk backwards. And for it to contort its arms forward and push its head backwards and crawl on its belly is just very strange. I think that's what bothers me the most about it. Something moving like that in the wood line,
And you were, and he thought, I guess you were down there near where this thing was, right? Because he was hollering and asking if that was you.
I was around that area of operations, but I wasn't directly there. I mean, I was previously with him in the vehicle when he was staged there, but I was out with another squad or platoon, and like I said, I got a ride back from a Humvee. I really can't remember off the top of my head where exactly, how far distance I was. I just know previously I was with him at that area.
Wow, it's really interesting how the military people will be on bases and they have these encounters. Kind of, I've heard a lot of different stories. I had one guy that wrote me a story, and he said that he ran across a female Bigfoot. He was going from the chow hall to another spot on the base, and one just happened to kind of go across a little clearing, and he said that it looked like it was embarrassed. He said he looked over at it, and it looked. He said he felt like the thing was embarrassed that it got caught, and he didn't know what to do or say because he was kind of embarrassed to say anything. But he told his sergeant about it, and he said, "Yeah, there's a family of Bigfoot that live here on this base, and I think this was down like in Louisiana or somewhere down there, or the guy was from Louisiana at least, and he said that just don't tell nobody about it, but there was a plane that had crashed in like a swamp area on the base, and they thought that a family of Bigfoot lived in this plane back there in that swamp. That's kind of the few people that talked about it. That's what they thought was happening. So I mean, it's kind of interesting how many military people see these things on the bases.
Makes you wonder what's going on underground or behind the scenes in these bases, if there was a past or history there that's not being disclosed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. Well, what's the let's go to your Bigfoot story.
Okay. This was from the same individual, and after he had that encounter, he told me, expressed the story that he had a soldier. He was a team leader, I believe, or something of that nature at the time, and it was in Fort Carson, Colorado. And I'm sure all your listeners are aware of Colorado being a hot activity area for Bigfoot. And they were doing a mechanized maneuver. Since he was in a mechanized unit, he transferred a lot to vehicles that are armored. So anyways, he was in a tank, and this is coming account from his friend telling him this. There was two individuals in the tank, and there was a driver. Usually the driver is driving, looking like a motorcycle yoke, but he's laying down on his back with the hatch closed. When you're in the woods, you really want to have your hatch closed anyways to keep limbs and trees and stuff from smacking you in the face while you're driving. So his periscope, is not that good to see, so the driver never seen this. It was just the tank commander, the TC, and the gunner. And the turret hatch for the driver was closed. The TC, the tank commander's, was opened, and the gunner's was open. I'm assuming it was hot. A lot of times soldiers like to have the hatch open to kind of keep cool. And they were going down the trail, and they were dodging big trees. I guess there was an area that was a lot of trees, so they were going through this path, and it was just, I don't know if it was their own vehicle or others, but the tank commander was standing up, and he looked to his right, and he freaked out and sat back down and told the gunner, he's like, go look up there. And he's like, what is it? What did you see? And he closed the hatch, and he's like, I'm not going back up there. You need to see what's up there. And he's like, okay. And so he stood up and looked at his 12, which is directly in front of him. And he's like, I don't see nothing. And he tugged his leg and said, look to your right. And he looked to his right, and he said he's seen a Bigfoot almost eye level to the turret, walking with he said it had really long arms, and it was swinging. And he said the arms almost looked like it was touching the knees. And he said it was almost eye level to him, just walking right next to the tank, like looking at it, like captivated that it was a tank. And at that moment, he kind of froze and slowly turned back to his 12 and went down and closed the hatch and locked it. And the tank commander said, did you see that? And the gunner said, yes, I seen it. He said, the tank commander said to him, don't you tell anybody you've seen this. So that was coming from a story from my squad leader that he had an encounter with his soldier.
So how tall is a Abrams tank?
I want to say, is it 9-10 feet tall?
Yeah, man,
10 feet tall.
They're big pieces of machinery. I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I should know these things, but I never operated a tank.
Right.
Yeah, he was eye level. I can look it up real quick if you'd like.
Well, no, that's all right. We know that they're about 9 or 10 foot tall. It was a tall creature to be looking directly eye to eye, is what you're saying.
Okay, here we go. It's actually 8 feet, 2.44 meters.
Wow.
That's the height.
So it was looking directly, basically, eye level with him.
Yeah, because he was standing up out of the hatch.
And this
thing to his right.
And this thing was walking alongside the tank, just looking at him.
Yeah,
Wow,
following them while they're driving through the trail, just like looking at the tank, walking next to it.
man, that's interesting, isn't it?
It must be used to tanks, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably thinking, "Wow, man, this is a powerful machine," you know. And
Well, I guess it probably figured that, no one was, maybe possibly exposed at the time, or maybe they were going somewhere dangerous, and he was there to kind of make them reconsider a think, or maybe it was coming into his domain or its domain. There's many variables, I guess.
yeah, I mean, it's just kind of interesting that it would walk alongside it and looking at it. I mean, it might have just been fascinated with how, the tank is made and how big they are, and I'm sure they're curious. Probably was thinking, "Wow, what is this?"
Well, I guess if you want to have rocks not thrown at you, just be in an M1 Abrams and Bigfoot leave you alone.
Yeah. Did he say? Did he say if it was a male or female or anything else about it?
No, I didn't. This is coming from secondhand, so those fine details, were probably faded over time. I do remember him saying something in the nature of its arms being really, really long.
Yeah.
Like how it was kind of swinging its arms and it was real long.
Right.
But it just bothered me so much that it was just made eye contact, and was looking at the tank. I just think it's weird. Like it had no fear, and you usually hear of them being elusive.
Right.
So
I think it was just very curious and to see something like a tank that's that powerful and moving along, and maybe he didn't. A lot of times animals will come close to it. Like if you're in your truck or something, a lot of times deer will come near your vehicle, like they don't see you in it or something, and as soon as you try to step out, they'll take off, and so maybe the thing was just looking at this machine and not really thinking human too much, and
it doesn't surprise me it happening in Colorado. I'm not surprised at the least bit, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. Colorado is a very mountainous wilderness type area, so there's probably all kinds of Bigfoot in that area.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple other cryptid stories that happened here in Kentucky before we digress to the Middle East, if you'd like.
Yeah, certainly.
This happened probably about a month ago. I have a neighbor who's my friend, and he has a friend named Wes that comes over and hangs out. And usually they all get together and play video games or something and drink some booze. And they're all my age, so I go over there and hang out with them. And I went over there, and they said, "You ain't gonna believe what happened to Wes." And I was like, "What happened? Tell me." He's like, I can't tell you the whole story. He's like, "It's better if you just call Wes." So I called him, and I had him on speakerphone, and I was asking him, what happened last night? And he said, he was driving, I think he dropped off his kid or he picked up his kid, and he was in a rural area out here in Kentucky, and he said that he's seen a deer with antlers, and it was a young buck, so the antlers weren't that big, but it was maybe a spike buck or something like that, maybe a 4-pointer, something small basket, young buck, and he said he's seeing it in his headlights, and he said all of a sudden something with wings flew over it, picked it up, and it picked it up off the ground and flew over his truck while he was driving. So imagine it was to his left. He sees the buck with his headlights, starts driving, sees it get picked up high enough to where it clears his truck, and he drives right over it because the thing picked it up and flew it from left to right. And he said he just hit the gas and kept driving. I was like, "Well, do you think it was like a eagle?" Because we see eagles out here near Barren River. And he was like, "No, it wasn't." He said, "I ain't never seen an eagle pick up a deer that high off the ground above my truck." He's like, all I remember seeing is wings, and the buck getting picked up. And he said it was the biggest set of wings I've ever seen before. And he's not a big animal expert, but he was really shook up by it. And I thought that was very strange to happen here in Kentucky. But I've heard of Mothman-style scenarios, I guess you could say, before, just like that one story of the smiling face creature, you know?
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of that Puerto Rico story.
Me too.
Did he say if the wings had feathers, or were they like skin, or?
He said, he just said memories they were black, and I don't remember him saying if it was bat-like or like bird-like, but he just remembers saying they were a big black set of wings. Because, mind you, he was going fast, driving down the road. You know, he has an old truck with not the greatest headlights, and he just mostly seen the deer getting picked up and the big set of wings while it's flying by. Because, you know, headlights don't really shine up; they shine more straight forward. So once something clears like 4 feet, you know, the brightness on whatever that object is starts to diminish, I guess.
Right. Did he say anything about the body of the creature? Was it humanoid looking body or a bird?
He just remembers seeing a huge set of wings, the biggest set of wings that he said it was bigger wide than his truck from front to end. And he just remembers the big wings. Because as soon as he seen the deer get picked up off the ground, his spidey sense kicked in and he started punching the gas. He didn't want to stick around and see what was going on because he's like, if it can pick up a 150-pound buck, it can pick me up. So he just got out of there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, those big bird stories, you know, I guess you've probably seen a few of those type stories on this channel. I've had pterodactyl stories, which were huge, and it even tried to pick up this these fellas fishing, you know, and they were hitting it with the fishing poles and stuff, and and this thing he said was charcoal black, and it was at nighttime, and so, I mean, it could have been something like that, but then I've also had these big, huge bird man type stories a few times. So the wings, it's hard saying. It makes you think it was to some type of bird, though, to be able to pick something up. It would have to have some claw type feet or something to be able to grip it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, plus its wingspan has to be enough lift. I mean, I've seen videos of eagles picking up rams and throwing them off cliffs, so maybe something just a touch bigger than an eagle could possibly pick up a buck if they could pick up rams. So it's quite possible.
Yeah, that's just very unlikely to go after deer, though. That seems almost like a Thunderbird type story or some kind of
Kentucky
unknown.
too, and that's known for around here. You know, the native stories of, you know, Kentucky means giant or land of the giants, I think. I researched before that's what Kentucky means.
Wow, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
the other cryptid story.
Yeah, if you talk to that guy, ask him some more about that, and you know if you can get any more detail.
I'll be sure to get the details. If you want one day, I can see if he can. You can call him and he'll tell you his situation, what happened. Hear it from his mouth.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. All right. What other story you got, man?
Well, what really got me into the whole Dogman thing was I had a story told to me, and this story happened near Barron County, Kentucky. I don't know if you know where that is. It's near the Barron River, kind of near Glasgow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was two individuals. I'm a big gun guy, and I met a guy at a gun store who was young, around my age. He was really cool. So, you know, we already opened up and started talking about, you know, gun stories and things like that. And went over to his house, and we went out and shot some guns. And he, the friend that we know, that how we met each other, came over, and he's like, "Hey, you ain't going to tell him the story about that wolf?" And he's like, "No, I really don't want to tell the story." And his friend was there too, and he's like, "I don't know if I want to talk about it." And I was like, "You guys can't, you know, say this and not tell me. I want to know what's going on. What is the story?" And it took the whole night. Luckily, he had some Jack with him, so it kind of made him open up a little bit. And, yeah, and he started to open up, and he's like, all right, you want to know the story? I'll tell you. I was like, yeah, I want to hear it. And he said, well, him and his friend that was with him, they were long friends. They've known each other for probably ever since they were like 10 years old. They've known each other, and they're in their 20s now. And he said they were about 13, and they took their dad's old farm truck, and they took it. And a lot of times they live out in the country in Kentucky. You know, that was fun to be 13, is getting an old farm truck and cheering on and trying to tear it up off road and old trails and stuff. You know. Well, they were hitting up the trail that their dad owns, which is, he owns hundreds of acres. And they came across a stop where the road breaks, and it's where the creek is, and sometimes they can clear it and sometimes they can't. Well, I guess this time they couldn't clear it, so they just stopped, and they were parked in front of the creek, and they sat there for just a few seconds, and they noticed that there was something in the headlights far away. And I'd say it was probably, they said it was about 200 yards. They said it was a good distance, you know. And they said they seen what looked like a wolf or something standing up looking at them. And they were looking at it a second, and then they said they started to see it move. And they freaked out and put the car in reverse, made a 3-point turn, and then got out of there, and he was hitting the gas as hard as he could. Well, when he started gaining some speed, he thought he was cleared because it was a good distance away before it could catch up to him, you would think. He said all of a sudden it felt like a big boulder of rock slammed into the bed of the truck. Okay? That's what he said it felt like. Felt like somebody picked up a big boulder and just dropped it in the bed of the truck. And the guy that was driving was like, you know, yelling and cursing, oh my God, it's in the truck, you know. And he had the window, you know how some of the old trucks have the sliding window in the back?
Yeah, yeah.
His friend automatically grabbed his frog gig and started thrusting the frog gig. And he says when he was hitting whatever it was, he said he could feel the gig give and go, like it was hitting tissue and going in. And when he did it, he made like 3 or 4 jabs at it, and then apparently, I guess, it ran off or jumped off, but took the gig with it. And he did say he remembered seeing blood on it, and they couldn't see it in the back because, you know, it's dark and it's only a headlight. Sometimes trucks have like a tailgate red light or something. This is an old farm truck in the pitch black dark, so, you know, he probably didn't even have interior lights in the thing. So, but that's what he said. He felt it get in the truck, and he got his frog gig and jabbed it a few times and felt it give. And that was the story he told me. And then he seen it a second time in his backyard, and I've noticed that there's a recurring theme of people seeing him once they've encountered him before. Mm-hmm. But I'll go over that in a second. I didn't know if you wanted a little bit more detailed synopsis of it.
All the detail you can give, man.
Well, I kept on asking him questions. I mean, I was a little inebriated too, you know, and I was like, no, you guys are lying. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, it really happened. And I was like, why didn't you keep the frog gig? And he's like, we didn't keep it because it ran off with it because I was stabbing the thing. And I was like, well, how do you know? Why did you just start stabbing the back? You know, I mean, what made you do that? He's like, I figured it was in the back of the truck and we were going to die. And it was the only thing they had. And I thought that was pretty cool. But just the fact, and I asked him, I said, well, what would you say it felt like when it hit the truck? Because I was like trying to, you know, maybe it could have been a falling rock or you know, something, you know, gear in the back. And he's like, it felt like a big boulder was like 10 feet off the ground and dropped in the bed of the truck. So, yeah, and that happened. That's real close to here near Barron River, and I always thought that was strange. And then the second time he seen it, he was in his backyard, and he said he looked up when he was, I think he was feeding his horses or something, and he looked up, and he seen a wolf man, and when he seen it, I think he, like, I don't know if he said something to it, but something triggered it. And when it ran away, he said, instead of running like a human, it was kind of like how a dog skitters and runs, but it was more upright. Like it, and in between a human still standing and a dog galloping, if that makes any sense.
Right.
And he says it was really fast, so they got out of there, and that was the last time he seen it. And I told him, I ain't never going to shoot in your backwoods, man. You can count me out, dude.
Did he say whether the head was more wolf-like or Doberman-like, or?
I just think he's seen the ears. Mind you, it was 250 yards away, so like picking up a really good detail.
Well, I mean,
but I remember him referring it to a wolf and it having pointed ears.
Yeah, well, when he saw that when he was feeding the horses, it must have been closer, right?
No, that one, yes. He said it. I asked him. I said, "What was it built like? What color was it?" And he said it was more of a brownish gray color. And he says the nose wasn't really strong nose. It was kind of like a, not a pug, but kind of that in between size. It wasn't really snout like. It was more, I don't know what kind of breed dog that would be that had kind of a shorter snout, not a real long one. But I remember him telling me about its composition of muscles. How it was real muscular, and it had like a grayish brown type color to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he actually witnessed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
He witnessed driving in the country. He witnessed a giant wolf. I don't know if you've had anybody talk about seeing a giant wolf, but he was making a turn in the country. When he made the sharp left-hand turn, he said he thought he'd seen a coyote because it was right next to the vehicle where the sharp turn was. But when he was making the turn, it caught his attention because the body kept going like it was a really long body. And it freaked him out. And he had, I think he was underage at the time, and he had booze on him. And he didn't want to call the police, but he was so scared he called the game warden. And he said the game warden showed up there, and he asked him if he'd seen anything. And the game warden says that he's seen some tracks there that he'd never seen before. And I think that was all that happened. But I just remember him telling me the body was so long, like it. And when he looked back, it was gone. The body was just extremely long. He was making the turn, driving, and he was just like, "Oh my God, is this thing ever going to end?"
Huh.
So I remember him telling me that.
That might have been a Dogman, like on all fours. Now, when he was saying it was running, it was kind of halfway in between standing up and running on all fours. You know how the Dogman has these really long arms. When they run on all fours, the front half is usually higher and the bottom half is lower, so that it kind of looked like a hyena running. So I think that might be why he was saying it looked like it was in between standing up and down. Because the
that
arms
makes
are so
perfect
long.
sense. Yeah.
Wow. And I would say that if he saw this giant wolf and it had a really long body, that might have been because that might have been the Dogman creature down on all fours, and that torso is long.
Yeah, he didn't make out like what kind of wolf it was or what kind of dog. He just remembered that the body was just so big and it didn't end. And when he made that sharp turn and looked back, it was gone. But he said it was longer than the length of the car. He knew it was because he drove and measured the body side by side, but it was such a fast curving turn. He didn't really have time to like stop during that blind curve and look. He was just, you drive and you're doing 50 miles per hour and something passes at you suddenly like that. You don't really have time to think and stop and look at it,
So it was standing still?
It was just standing still, right off of the road, and just standing still. And he said it looked like a big wolf, is what he told me.
Did he said the body was really long. Did he say that it was really tall off the ground also, or?
Yes, he said it was tall, but he said he just told me it was a big wolf. And I was like, how close was it to the vehicle? And he says it was close enough that he seen the body out his passenger window. and he just seen solid body.
Right.
You know, he didn't see the head or the tail or the legs. It just was constant wolf body while he was making the turn.
So where is this? He was seeing this at
Barron, Kentucky, Barron County,
okay.
Glasgow.
And he saw.
You ever heard of the Barron River?
All three encounters were in Barron.
Yeah.
Huh. That might be a good place to go Dogman looking if you were trying to gather some evidence. It sounds like
I'd have to pack more than my Glock if I'm going to go out and hunt dog.
Yeah, I don't think I want to go Dogman hunting. I couldn't imagine seeing a wolf type creature stand up. Bigfoot's scary enough, but I can't even comprehend seeing something like a wolf stand up and have hands, and how scary that would be. That just has to be just life changing. You know, I've seen some scary stuff. Don't get me wrong, but a predator, you know, a wolf is a predator, and to see it with human characteristics, that just has to be traumatizing beyond, you know, comprehension.
I mean, just to know that there's something that you've only seen in movies, and the movies alone show that it is a devastating creature to human flesh. To see that in person, I can't even imagine. You know, that'd be more scary than seeing a lion face to face.
Oh no, man, it's amazing. Because of the human characteristics that to see something, you know, being on all, you know, all fours and then it stands up, or to see it standing up looking at you, the idea of it standing there looking at you, you would be wondering, what is it thinking? You know, is it going to eat me? You know what I mean? Because it gives it an intellect if it has human characteristics, and then that means it can strategize, and you know, to have it jump in the back of your truck. Oh my goodness! Now, when you said he was frog gigging, he had a frog gig, and he was poking it through the back glass. The only thing that makes me wonder about that is that it couldn't have been too long of a handle for him to be, you know, jabbing a gig from inside the truck into the back of the truck, right?
What can you describe that again?
He said that, you know, he felt like something landed in the back of the truck, and he had the frog gig, and he was jabbing it through that sliding back glass. That makes me think that the handle on his frog gig couldn't have been too terribly long to be, you know, jabbing it from inside the truck into the back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes me wonder. Was it shin? Was it knee? Was it thigh? How close was it to the back? You know, how long was the frog gig? You know,
right. And you know, sometimes people have a shorter frog gig too, more like a you know, staff, like when they go around the pond and they, you know, spotlight the frog and they gig it from kind of close. You know, I mean, I've had frog gig with a shorter handle, but that was the first thing that popped into my mind. But
yeah, I never went frog gigging, so I always assumed that a frog gig was one size.
Yeah. And it might have had a handle that extends too. You know, I mean, sometimes you can twist.
Now, are those sharp enough? Are those sharp enough to puncture a person's leg?
A frog gig?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and there's some of them that are gnarly, man. Especially if you're scared. You know, some of them are real thin. You know, where it slides in easy, and some of them are like thicker and have more of a barb on them. You know, there's several different kinds, you know, for sure. He said he felt it sliding into the creature then. Like he was actually.
Yeah, because I asked him, when you were stabbing it, did you feel something? Like, did you feel resistance? Because I was in, you know, trying to interrogate him. I wanted as many details as I could. And I asked him, I was like, what did it feel like? He's like, I felt it give, like I was stabbing and it was going into something, like I was hitting something and it was going. So I guess, it'd be like if you had a ham hock and you jabbed it, you would feel it stop and then give. He's 13. So I'm sure it wasn't a lot of brute force or initial jab and just immediately punctured. I'm sure it had a little bit of resistance until it gave into the tissue.
Yeah. And, one of the reasons I believe him is because I've heard of dogmen jumping in the back of the truck several times. I've heard of them jumping on the back of a car even. And, you know what I'm saying? And one case, this dogman had like a robe, had like a robe thing on, and it jumped onto the back of the car, and I guess it broke the window, and they took off, and when they got home, the robe was hung in the back glass.
Wow.
The dogman wasn't there, but it tore the robe off of the thing, and that made me think of more of a ritual type thing, like sometimes they have areas where they do satanic worship kind of stuff, and these dogman creatures will be there as guardians over the area.
Shape-shifting, you say?
Yeah, kind of it's more of a shapeshifter type deal when you have the robe kind of deal. Because the people are in a satanic elite spirit worship type, whatever you call those cults. They get to a certain level and they have to pick between vampire or werewolf. And if you pick, the werewolf, you can actually get to a point where you can actually transform into this werewolf. And what they do is when they go out in the woods and they have these rituals, sometimes human sacrifice and things like that, or whatever they're doing, they'll have a few people that have changed into these dogmen, and they will play as the guardians.
Hounds of hell.
Yeah. It's pretty scary.
Well, that reminds me of a Christian that was a part of a satanic coven and spoke out about his old video. He had a mullet, so I knew it was like late 80s, early 90s. And he said that when they invoked a demonic seance or ritual, that the Wolfman, because that was his biggest fear when he was a kid, was the Wolfman, and that the Wolfman appeared and said, something in the nature of, why didn't you tell me that person was a Christian? Because they tried to cast a spell or a hex on a person, and the person was actually a Christian. Yeah. And I remember him saying that the demon looked like the Wolfman from the movies, and I think that's just kind of odd. You're talking about the cloaked figure, and then so there must be some type of confirmation from invoking that wickedness.
Yeah. He was conjuring up. He had already sent some lower level demons after this group of Christians that he was trying to basically curse, and those lower level demons came back and said, why did you send us there? We can't touch them, kind of thing. And the demons were mad at him. That's what he said. And then he went to trying to conjure up a higher level one, and it took him several days, I think he said. But when it finally came forth, he said it looked like a werewolf. And it was. So like
you've seen that too.
Yeah, and it was one of the demons that name was in the Bible, something like, I don't think it was Ashtaroth, but it was one of those names like that that you remember from the scriptures. And so it made me wonder if that was its true form, or if it just appeared to him in that form, or what. But when these people are able to change themselves into a werewolf, it makes you wonder if that's kind of the true form of some of those type demonic entities. I've talked before about the beasts that are before the throne. There's all kinds of really strange creatures described in the Bible with human bodies but an animal type head, and
Didn't the
So
Egyptians have a wolf-headed creature too?
yeah, like Anubis, it makes you
Yeah.
wonder if that was a real entity that was, messing around with in Egypt there, and these people were worshiping it. Because I mean, I remember one spot I was reading one time in the Old Testament, and it taught God said that He punished the gods of the Egyptians, or you know what I'm saying. So if He punished them, then they were real. So these people were worshiping some of these fallen beings. It isn't just myth. You know what I'm saying? When you see these drawings and carvings and the iconography of the time of ancient Egypt and other societies, from the past, it makes you wonder if they were really real creatures that these people were worshiping. And I know, like in the when the Bible talks about um, the Anakim, um, it says that Moab called them Emims. It's spelled with a E-I-M something or another. I can't remember how to spell it, but it is Emims or something like that. And in the Hebrew, it meant terror. And I was looking at that definition in the Hebrew and looking at what was written under the definition, and it said that meant terror because of the terror that they caused their worshipers. So people were actually worshiping some of these Nephilim creatures, and they weren't too good to the people who worshipped them. They caused these people terror. They basically ruled by terror, and so when we see Anubis and things like that, it makes you wonder if those people were really interacting with these type creatures.
Well, weren't the Romans founded by two children or a child feeding off of a wolf or something? Wasn't that one of Rome's ancient stories?
Yeah, there's something like that. Yeah, in their what people call mythology, but it makes you wonder if it's not just myth. It might be
Had to come
embellished a
something.
little bit. Yeah, well, but you had some fascinating stories there, man. That's for sure some interesting stuff. And this guy that was seeing the Dogman stuff, I guess you know him pretty good and somebody
Yeah,
trustworthy.
in the South, a lot of guys hang out. Like some people hang out at barbershops. Where I live, guys hang out at gun stores. That's a lot of guys will just come hang out and they click with a bunch of gun guys, and they'll shoot the crap with each other. And I found out he lived near me, and I met him through the guy that worked at the gun store. So we're all the same age, so we went and hung out and shot some guns that day, and then drank some Jack, and that's when he told me about that story.
Yeah, it's not. That's just not stuff you make up. I can't imagine sitting there and making up a story like that and telling somebody.
But he was genuinely, truly afraid to tell me the story. Like, he really did want to say it. And his friend that was there with him that stabbed the creature was like, I don't want to say anything, but if he does, then I'll open up and say. And it took almost all night for him to finally open up and tell me what happened.
Yeah. They get a truth serum, the Jack Daniels truth serum there. Help loosen the old lips up a little bit.
Oh, yeah. It worked. It worked.
Right. Well, do you have any more of the cryptid stories?
No, I think fortunately that's all I know right now. But when I go out in the woods now, every time I go out here, I always carry a rifle of some sort. I don't, an extra ammunition just in case.
Right.
I don't fool around. So.
Well, when you were deployed overseas, you had, kind of some supernatural kind of things going on. If you want to kind of touch on those.
Sure. I was stationed in Iraq in all of 2005. From January of 05 to January 06 is pretty much when I was home. And first 6 months I was in an area called Bakuba, and I was stationed at a base called Fob Skunyon, which was right across the street from a base called Warhorse. And the story I remember was I had a roommate, and he came back really scared. And I asked him, what happened, and he said that he was using the porta-john because, at that base we had porta-johns. And he said when he was walking to it, he said he seen an Iraqi that was there that was really, really pale, and like you could see through him, but he was glowing just ever so slightly. And he said that when he did a double take, he was gone. And I asked him, I said, well, because at that time Iraqi military weren't with us on that base. And then I found out that Saddam, executed soldiers sometimes. Or maybe it was a soldier that died there previously, but he remembers seeing an Iraqi soldier there that was glowing, and it freaked him out. So, mind you, there was a lot of death and bloodshed there even before we got there in '06. So,
right, yeah, I think it's a lot of demonic activity in that region.
Oh yeah,
and it goes all the way back to Babylon. From when you're in Iraq, that's where ancient Babylon was, and a lot of the places that you hear about in the Bible, that's where it was, and like even Samaria, and
Nebuchadnezzar was there, right?
yeah. So when you were there, did you think that the place had a weird spiritual vibe to it?
Yes, it was very, very dark. It was, I can't put it into words, but it would only have to be something you would have to feel when you're there. I mean, it was hell. I mean, depending on where you were in Iraq, being away from home is tough anyways, but seeing as much grotesque ways of people dying and people leaving this earth in horrible ways, and just the whole turmoil and anguish of human beings trying to kill each other is just, you could sense the evil in the air, and it was feeding off of all those lower emotional feelings of angst and hate and fear, that it was pressing it out of you to keep itself fed, if it makes any sense.
Yeah. And I think that they have a lot of stories of the stuff like the jinn there. And to me, I think the jinn are what we call in the West shadow beings or shadow people, which are I think that they're disembodied spirits, would be considered to be unclean spirits that can possess people. In the Bible, when they talk about unclean spirits, that to me, I want to picture like those type. But the jinn, they typically describe as a smoky black, and the shadow people are usually a black. They look like a shadow, and there's no light in them at all. A lot of times when you see some type of evil entity, it's got some light in it. It has a color to it and things like that. But Jesus talked about some types that are worse than others and have no light in them at all. So to me, I think the shadow being the jinn type and stuff like that are just pure hatred and pure evil, and I really believe they thrive on the death and destruction and the ruin that because they come only to steal, kill, and destroy, and they have done that for ages in the Middle East. And so being there, I would assume that you would sense some of that type of thing, if you're spiritual at all. So what other type of things did you see or hear, or experience that's kind of on the spiritual level in the Middle East there?
Well, I went home for leave because after the first 6 months, I picked my leave in the middle of a deployment, and as soon as I left in June? Was it June? Yes, it was June. I left to go home for 2 weeks, and when I came back, I was stationed because all my unit shifted to a base called Combat Outpost in Ramadi, and it was on a road called Route Michigan. And I got there, and they told me that they captured an EVP because I guess they were watching white noise or something, because that's all you got to do is just, watch movies and stuff if you don't have anything to do, which is very rare. You're usually kept busy, but he had the EVP, and we keep the voice recorders for, documentation for audio recordings if we detained somebody, or we would have an audio recording, and helps with sworn statements. And so he had the EVP, and I was like, well, give me the story behind it. Like, what was the questions you asked? And he said, well, our buddy, M, I don't want to give out his name, I guess, he's atheist, and he, go figure, has dreams of demons chasing him in his sleep, like following him or chasing him. And I'm like, well, go figure there. And so they got the EVP and asked a few questions, like, who are you? Why are you here? And then they asked, they didn't get no response, and they asked, well, why are you haunting M? And there was a pause for about 3 seconds, and it said, to survive. Demons, demons, demons. And it freaked me out. I never thought I would hear an EVP in English say that in the Middle East.
And what did it say now?
It said, in a whispering tone, it said, to survive. Demons, demons, demons. And he asked, why are you haunting him? Why are you chasing him? And I had that EVP for a long time, but it just was too much for me, because I just got back from home, and I knew I had another 6 months, and, wanted to have a clear state of mind, but it was weird that it spoke in English in the Middle East,
Right, yeah. Yeah, wow. I wonder what it meant by that, to survive.
Well, if they chase or hunt something for fear, that's how they feed. That's how they survive. They don't survive off of love. That's of the Most High is pure love. They feed off of everything opposite. Everything's inverted.
Yeah. It's a strange thing to say, Demon.
Yeah.
Demon. Wow, that's pretty scary. What did the atheist guy think about that?
Man, I hope he converted or something, man, because he had some wild dreams. He told me about it, but he was kind of one of those guys that he was a big Star Wars guy, and he always thought the Sith was cool. He always thought that the dark side was the more powerful and stuff. But he was kind of one of those gothic guys, and because you meet all walks of life in the military, you'll meet every type of person there is, and he was one of those gothic metal type guys, and he liked the Sith. So he vibed or resonated with the dark side, fictitiously in stories and, spiritually. So of course those things would manifest in his reality,
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it helped him wake up to the fact that stuff is real, and he come to the faith, and that's good,
I don't know whatever happened to him after that with his connection with the Creator. I don't know whatever happened. I lost touch with all of them after we got back and I got out. But I hope the best. I hope that woke him up.
Right. Yeah. You said something about let's see here, a dream that you had that had a soldier that looked like a devil, and then you talked about the sheep herder thing.
Yeah, and what really made me really second guess that is when you explained your personal story of a red demon being, with glowing red skin, and I remember in my dream I was sitting in the Bradley, and the Bradley's really noisy. If you've ever sat inside of one, it's while it's moving, it's a very noisy vehicle, almost deafening. And I'm inside the Bradley, and everything's black, but I see this red-faced soldier that looked like the perfect, strong-chinned devil, and it had its helmet on, and the chin strap was undone because its chin was so large, and it was staring right at me, and I was staring right back at it. And it's like we were just, and it was a stare like kind of like I'm gonna beat you, and I was kind of stared at it like like it was like a fight with the eyes, if that makes any sense, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was just strange. Like, out of all the things I seen, maybe it was a reflection of myself and how I felt being over there, but just to see something so detailed and so dark, with the red skin and the face and the strong chin, and how detailed the chin strap was undone because its chin was too big. I mean, it's just weird.
Yeah. When you look at some of the Bible stories where, like when Joseph had an angel come to him inside of a dream. So here you have a real being, a real angel. A lot of times angels, sat down and eat with people. You can entertain them unaware, or you can, they fought with people. They can be physical or non-physical. But in the Bible, an angel went to Joseph and gave him a message, but it went inside of his dream, it said. So here's a real being going inside a dream and gave a real message to Joseph to not reject the woman because the child was of God. The Magi had an angel come to them in a dream and said, "Don't go back and tell Herod about the child that was born." So these beings can infiltrate into our dream, and it makes me kind of wonder if the dream is. Sometimes our dreams, I think, are us spiritually on a non-physical plane that doesn't have time and space, and you know what I'm saying, where time doesn't matter, space doesn't matter, where you can have a real entity come to you and have a meeting with you inside of a dream, and you're physically or non-physically really there with a real entity, um, conveying a real message. And it's kind of hard for me to explain that, but
I understand what you're saying.
yeah. So demonic entities, or even fallen angelic beings, can go inside of dreams and sometimes give someone a nightmare, or try to convey some type of fear or message to someone, or God can send an angel and give you a good message or a warning or what have you. So when you have dreams, sometimes, so I believe sometimes dreams are just your mind sorting things out, but also at times I believe that it is something negative trying to mess with you in some kind of way, or something, maybe from God that's there to give you some type of message for some purpose, you know what I'm saying? So,
Well, your spirit and consciousness has to go somewhere. I mean, you're at your weakest point of defense physically when you're asleep and dreaming.
yeah.
Your spirit, your soul. I mean, people interact with loved ones that have passed on in their dreams, and then we've encountered dark things. So what if, there is a parallel? Your consciousness goes somewhere when you dream.
Yeah. I had one guy,
especially when you remember him.
Yeah, I had one guy share a story. He and his wife were both in bed, and they both were having a nightmare, a really bad nightmare kind of dream. And he and his wife both woke up at the same time, really, really scared and sweating, and everything. And they both woke up and saw one of those shadow beings that was hovered right above them. And then it went over to the wall, went up the wall, and then kind of slipped through the ceiling into the attic. But I thought it was kind of interesting how this thing had infiltrated both of their dreams. So that just goes to show you how time and space in that realm, I think it's a spiritual type realm, and it was able to infiltrate two people's dreams at the same time, or at least it was doing something to cause them both to have a nightmare. So I pay attention to dreams if they're vivid and I feel like they mean something. But sometimes you just dream some bizarre something. I think is your mind sorting things out. But so
Well,
that dream that you had, I don't know what that meant to you. Maybe it was something negative trying to make you feel some kind of way about your mission. Um,
I believe it was. I
yeah,
think it was a self-reflection of what we were doing was wrong, and that I was the devil that I was looking for, or that the devil was inside of all of us, all of the soldiers that did wrong things there and did horrible atrocities. There's many layers to that onion.
you know,
Since we're
I know that
go ahead.
sometimes
I'm sorry.
not war isn't always wrong. You think about it. Sometimes God would send Israel to go to war. Sometimes He would even stir up a host against Israel, like He said, "I'll stir up the Medes and send them against you." I believe that these wars that we've had that's destabilized the Middle East are something that God has ordained to happen so that all the scriptures can be fulfilled. Because at some point, all these areas like Iraq and Syria and Turkey and the Bible says that Egypt and Edom, I think it's Edom, will follow in submission. That these countries are all going to come together and unify into a caliphate at some point, and the scripture is going to end up being fulfilled. They're going to go against Israel, and so I think God has overthrew Saddam. When the Bible says, "Look, Saddam's not the first Babylonian king that has been disposed of." You know what I'm saying? And he
He thought
considered
he was the
himself.
reincarnation. He thought he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar. Do you know
Yeah,
that?
yeah. That's what I'm saying. In Daniel, the Bible says that God sets up kings and disposes of them as He wills. And I think God let Saddam be king, but He also sent us to go dispose of him. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, He reigns on the just and the unjust alike. So His word is going to be fulfilled in the end, no matter what. Um, so I wouldn't. You were on the good side, brother. You know, and I think that we have good intentions, and we've tried to do the right thing, and helping these countries establish a democracy where they could live a free and life and be able to have, like we do, individual right to pursue happiness and the American dream. We were trying to help them have that to where they weren't in chaos, but it's kind of naive to think that you can do that as long as they want to live under the Sharia, and it's just not going to happen. They will never embrace democracy or a constitutional republic like we have, because they always want to base it off of their laws that they have, and it just isn't conducive to a free individual right to pursue happiness and be freedom of speech and freedom, and the kind of freedoms that we have. It's contrary to that, and so I think that whatever that was trying to make you feel in a certain way about what you were doing, but I believe that you were doing your part for something that was ordained of God.
Well,
Um,
everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't have the spiritual awakening if I never stepped foot there. So,
right,
regardless
yeah,
whether it was right or wrong, I learned something from it.
yeah, and I'm sure not everything was perfect, and not everything was 100% right, but I believe it was ordained. Um, and I think God's preserving the United States right now for a time that's coming at some point. Who knows when? But I believe that we're the eagle that goes and assists Israel when they. I think at some point they're going to get surrounded and they're going to flee to Petra, and then I think that we're the eagle the Bible talks about that goes and nurses the eagle or nurses Israel in in this wilderness area for a period of time until the Lord comes. Because when He comes, it's on, man. Because every country where you remember that song that as you sing at church sometimes, it goes, "Behold, He comes, riding on a cloud at the trumpet call." You ever heard
I
it?
don't know.
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard that one. That's a good one, though.
Yeah. It's like, "Behold, He comes, riding on a cloud at the trumpet call." And it goes through a bunch of different wordings, but that's the gist of it: is "Behold, He comes riding on a cloud." And if when you ask people, okay, where does that come from? It comes from the scriptures, and it talks about, "Behold, He comes riding on a swift cloud," and basically it says that He goes into Egypt, and he basically destroys the enemy, and and it's because the Coptic Christians are being persecuted at that point, and they're crying out for the Lord to come help them. They're
Yeah.
on the edge of extinction, and they're crying out for the Lord, and he comes, and the Bible talks about the mighty one who goes, who comes, and he goes into all these countries. And everywhere where the mighty one or the Lord goes and destroys people, or treads out the wine press, and his garments are stained in blood, and it gives a visual of him being at war. Every one of these places is in the Middle East, and he comes in with a rod of iron when he comes back next time, and he's going to crush the enemy, and it's going to be amazing to see how that all plays out.
What a great time to be alive.
I'm telling you, man. He ain't gonna come back as a teddy bear, dude. He comes with a rod of iron, and and that's not, and he don't lose. Lord will not
No.
lose. And
All these fools that join the dark side think somehow they're going to come on top. It's just they're masked by their ego and pride. They have no idea.
Yeah,
No idea.
Yeah, and they aren't like in the walls of Jericho when they fell. People talk about, they marched around the city, and they blew their trumpets and the walls fell. Well, right before that, it talks about there was someone rode up to Joshua. He comes riding up on like this white horse, or on a horse. I don't remember if it was white or not, but he comes riding up, and Joshua said, "Are you for us or for them?" And this guy said, "I am the captain of the Lord's host." This was the captain of the Lord's army, dude. There was another army that was not visibly seen except for Joshua seeing that. But there was a host. There was a army that was there that most people didn't see. And so when these walls fell after they went around, they blew the trumpets and what have you, it makes you wonder, did that army hit those walls? Was it kind of like Elijah when his servant said, "Oh, we're going to be dead now. Look at the Syrian army is all around us. We're going to die." And Elisha said, don't worry. Those who are with us are more than the you see out there." And then and he said, "Lord, open his eyes," and there was a host. There was a chariots of fire all around the mountaintops, all the way around them, a huge angelic army. And they ended up coming down to smoke the entire Syrian army. And then Elijah led them over to Samaria, and basically, and then the king fed them all and sent them back home. And the Bible says they never returned back into the land again. So, you know what I'm saying? That angelic army was able to smite that whole Syrian army. And then basically Elijah led them, and they didn't even know where they're going. It was like an abduction scenario. And when he led them over to the next city, and they were surrounded by Israel, he said, "Lord, open their eyes." The entire army opened their eyes, and they're like, "Where are we? What happened?" They were about to get Elijah, and then all of a sudden they woke up in another city. Can you
Wow.
imagine? Yeah. So believe
Jeez.
me, man, the Lord's got an army, and they have plenty of capabilities that are beyond our ability to even fathom.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, if you have anything else you wanted to add to your stories
Sure.
there.
I can go timeline a little bit. I wrote down some notes. Let's see. Let's see. Well, when I'll use the Jesus and the sheep one for last in closing, kind of give positive closure to the thing. But when I got out of the military, I went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and I went on a ghost tour. And I was by myself, trying to figure out what I'm going to do in life. I figured I don't know why, something told me I need to go to Gettysburg, And I guess it's really symbolic because a lot of lives were lost there, and a lot of souls on both sides probably questioned, the whole purpose of the war itself. So maybe that was the reason why I went there. And I went on a ghost tour because I'm kind of I was at the time into all that kind of stuff. And we went to this tour, and there was 20, 30 people, and the guest guide talked about different types of paranormal stuff in Gettysburg, which is smitten with it. And we went downstairs in this cellar area, and he had this mirror, and he said that a demon would show itself, or a ghost would show itself in the mirror. And he had dowel rods. You ever heard of dowel rods?
Yeah.
And he asked if anybody would volunteer to, hold the dowel rods, and I was like, I'll do it. And I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. No one wanted to do it, so I held the dowel rods, and the dowel rods spliced open to where it looked like something was coming towards me, where it opened up. And it's like, stand in front of the mirror. Do you see anything? And I was like, this ain't real. And I just took a picture with my camera, my digital camera I had. And nothing of it, because I remember saying that out loud. I was like, this is bogus, or this isn't real, or something, and took the picture. A little bit of me trying to provoke something, like, well, what if, just in case I provoke it, And I went home, going back to the hotel room, and I was scanning through my pictures that night, and I went over to the picture of the face, of the mirror, and I zoomed in on the face, and you can clearly see like a white-faced demon with its mouth wide open and a tongue sticking out, and blood hanging out. Like a bloody tongue, and with black eyes, and it was just really weird, and it was just made me think, out of all the people there, plus me just coming back from Iraq and experiencing what I've seen and felt, and I don't know if something followed me back, or
do you still have that?
No. Once I've connected with the Most High, all that paranormal stuff went away.
Right. Well, that's better that and that ghost hunting stuff and all that kind of stuff, dude, they're not ghosts. A lot of people think they are, but when you're absent from the body, you're either present with the Lord or you're somewhere else. And that is one of the tactics of the enemy, is to try to convince people that you could come, you could die and you could wander around and you're not being taken either into hell or to, and that's just a fact. The Lord told a story to where two different people, one was, saved basically, as much as you can be in the Old Testament days, and and the other one was the rich man, the rich man Lazarus. After they died, the rich man was in the lake of fire, and Lazarus was in Abraham's bosom, and the devil wants to try to make people think that there's not a place that you're going to go. So therefore, if people believe that they may die and they come out of their body and they get to wander around and do, whatever, then it takes the judgment factor off. You know what I'm saying? And I made a video about this a long time back, about the theory of evolution, and the perils of those kind of belief systems and what they really do to people and their thinking, and how it keeps people from coming to the gospel, and and knowing that there's a judgment, and there's been a judgment in the past. There's going to be a judgment in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
and
Well, the other thing is dabbling with that darkness is not really your if you're not protected and have the armor of the Most High, and you dabble in that stuff, and you don't know of the devil and the Creator. It's a very dangerous spectrum to be fooling with.
Oh yeah, the dowel rods even, because you're seeking information through a supernatural means, and then in Deuteronomy 18:10 it says, there shall be none found among you who do these things. And then there's a list, and one of them is that shall not be found among you is doing what you were doing there. And the God had mercy on you. But I do know I've had 2 stories on this channel where someone was basically, tempting or taunting, spirits at a place like you were at there, kind of almost daring it, or trying to tempt it to something to happen. And it ended. One of them ended with someone being killed and someone in prison for life. The other one, the guy ended up possessed and he killed someone, and by just daring a demonic entity. I don't think you'll mess with me. I'm a child of God. You ain't gonna touch me. And was daring this thing, and he wasn't living for the Lord. And the thing possessed him, and things went very, very ugly. And then another case where the thing followed these guys back to their apartment and attacked them, and it ruined one of the guy's life. He ended up in prison and basically in and out of trouble, and his life was just ruined. He was in college and everything. His life was on the right track, and they dared, taunted a demonic entity, and they weren't strong in the Lord, and it came back to haunt them. But it sounded like to me God had mercy on you. You messing with the dowel rods,
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've heard of celebrities that sell their soul for fame. I'm sure you've researched some of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Have you noticed that? Speaking of the story of the looking through the mirror, have you noticed that if you heard celebrities don't like having mirrors around them? Makes you wonder if that's why.
Yeah, there's something to that. I think there. I've heard of like something called scrying, where they these basically entities, I think, are able to use the mirror somehow. I don't know exactly how it works, but I have one story I was going to read one of these days where there was a demon that was living in the mirror, and the little grandkid would be in the bathroom talking to someone. They were like, "What the heck is going on there? Who's she talking to?" And so they kept, kind of checking up on this kid, and sure enough, the kid was talking to something, and the little kid was talking about her friend that lived in the mirror. And then one day she was in there talking, and all of a sudden she's like, "Ow!" And this thing actually attacked the little child. And at one point, this child, they went in the bathroom. She was laying on the floor. She was gray looking, and basically cold, like she was dead. And they were giving CPR and they praying, and the kid came to. But the kid was not right, man. The kid was skipping around the house singing weird songs, and she was a daddy's girl, and she wouldn't even even talk to her daddy, and just really, really strange, bizarre stuff. And they ended up taking that mirror down off of the bathroom door, slid it under the couch, right, and said, "Okay, I'm getting rid of this mirror tomorrow." And after praying over the kid, and they believed the kid was okay at that point, and the kid started acting normal and what have you. But they're like, "Okay, we're getting rid of this mirror tomorrow." Well, her daughter this lady's daughter didn't know that she had put that mirror underneath the couch, right? And
Oh no,
she was
no.
up late in the living room doing some arts and crafts kind of stuff or something like that. And she kept hearing something calling her name. And she was like, "Where's that coming from?" And it sounded like her daughter. And it kept calling her name, and she ended up, looking under the couch, and it was coming from that mirror. And so she ran in there and was telling her mom, "It's like, Mom, there's something is calling my name. It sounds like, my child, and it's coming from under the house." And she gets up and she goes, "Oh heck no!" She went in there right then. Whatever you're doing there, you're making a lot of racket. But
Wow.
she went in there and basically got that mirror out and took it out in the yard right then and broke the mirror up in pieces. And but yeah, it's not a game, man. It's not a game. But anyway,
Well, that
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just I just want to share a few things like that sometimes so people can know how
no.
serious those things are.
That reminds me, since you were talking about that, I had when I was in the Tennessee National Guard, I had a team leader that told me he worked at a jail, and he had a jailer friend that was a black guy from the South, and he told him a story once that him and his father, and this is as the man was a child, would watch a lot of scary movies, like all the time. That was his thing: scary movies, scary movies, scary movies. And this is during VHS, and he always kept all the movies underneath his bed. Well, one night his mother was doing the sheets and was tucking in the sheets, and the bed was against, an L-shaped corner, and she heard like a hissing, like growl, like "Rah!" underneath the bed, and she ran upstairs and told her husband and said, "You burn all those tapes right now or I'm divorcing you." And he did, and it never happened again. And I just thought it was so strange to imagine hearing and possibly feeling a yell or a screech like that underneath the bed, when it's dark and you're folding the sheets. I mean,
Right.
and and the thing is when you're watching all these dark movies, I mean, it's all ritualistic bloodletting, it's worshiping death, and that invokes that kind of stuff,
Yeah, yeah. We were talking about that movie, The Ring, earlier.
Yeah.
Years back when that first movie, The Ring, was out, I had rented it, and me and my wife at the time, we watched that movie, and I was like, man, I don't like this movie. This is, just not even cool. We shouldn't even have watched this. I felt convicted about watching it, and it was so disturbing because it was about, I can't remember really what it was about, but it was about a movie. And when you watch the movie, you ended up with, some kind of issue, or I don't remember exactly how it worked, but so I put that movie in the car and I took it to the movie rental place, and I returned it. I took it into the movie rental place and I returned the movie. I came back home and I was getting out of the car, and I kind of opened the back door of the car, and I was going to get some stuff out of the back seat. That movie was in the floorboard.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, it scared me, dude. I was like, what in the world? And
Oh,
so I went inside and I called the movie place and I said, I thought I'd just return this movie. And they said, you did, we've got it. I don't know where that came from, dude. I threw that away, dude. I like threw it in the trash and put the trash can out at the street. You know what I'm saying? That scared me, man. I was like, heck, fire.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, that reminds me.
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, that reminds me. I had a friend. I don't know if you remember this epidemic happening in America a few years ago. This fake weed thing going around with a lot of young kids who were dying and having horrible experiences or going crazy smoking this fake marijuana stuff. Are you aware of
Yeah,
this at all?
yeah, yeah. And there also was some type of bath salt people were snorting.
Okay. Well, him and his friends were watching a movie similar to what you're talking about. What did we just say? I keep on forgetting the name of that movie. Anyways, he was watching a movie and he was high off of that fake weed stuff, and he was watching that same movie. What was the movie we were talking about? I'm sorry, I forget the name of it. I keep forgetting it.
The Ring?
The Ring. He was watching The Ring, and he seen the creature in the movie crawl out of the TV and walked up to him and watched him. Him and his friends would look at him and his friends like in a very demeaning type of aspect. It was like looking at all of them like real fast paced, you know, like ghoulish. And then it just turned and walked right back and crawled back in the TV, and then the movie continued again. And he told me he said he'd never touch that stuff again after that. And I was like, man, brother, when you do stuff like that, man, you don't know what's opening up your body and spirit to that kind of stuff, you know?
Right, yeah.
Oh, I can only
scary.
imagine. Oh,
yeah, it's not a joke, man. It's the spirit realm, the demonic realm and stuff like that are real. And so is, you know, the angelic on the good side, and the Lord, you know, is real. And you know, that's just something that people really need to consider. But anyway, man, we are at over an hour and a half. We're going to have to wrap this up. If there's any something you want to say, something you want to tell, you can go ahead, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Oh, sure. There was just 2 more stories I was wanting to discuss I experienced, and then I'm done.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember you made a video about the serpent, you know, about the serpent energy, the serpent type effigy or imagery. 2012, I was had a dream where I was in a big open desert, but it was lightning and thundering, and I looked to my left and I seen this eel that was coiling around my arm, and it bit my arm, and the eel was like a glowing greenish color, and it sent venom up my arm, and I could see that my veins were turning purple from the venom, and it uncoiled my arm and fell to the ground, and I seen the venom coming all the way up. And you ever heard that sound in a movie when something real scary is about the apex, you know, like the you know, that kind of sound?
Yeah.
And then like boom, you know, and then the scary thing happens. Well, that sound was happening, and as soon as it hit my heart, I woke up and was yelling no as loud as I could with my hands in front of my face, and I seen the flower of life symbol in front of me. And as soon as I was aware of it, I felt that it was aware of me seeing it, and it disappeared. And when it disappeared, all the power in the house shut off. And then I heard 1,000 knocks, like it sounded like rocks were falling on the roof and coming up underneath the floor, like it was raining rocks, like rocks are knocking, like, ah. And it scared me so bad, I just covered the sheets over my head, and I always thought that was weird, you know, the serpent biting me and then waking up to flower of life, and then all the knocking. And I asked a lady that was Native American once what that meant. She said that it was that the knocking was a rattle, and that it was awakening or a message or an invitation from the wisdom of the serpent. You know, I try not to knock other people's beliefs or religions too much, but it was kind of captivating. I always thought that was strange.
Yeah, that's bizarre. And what's interesting is that when you woke up, you could hear real noise on the roof and under the house, kind of deal. And I've had that.
Oh yeah, when you hear.
Go ahead.
Oh, when you hear thousands of knocks where it sounds like hail or rain or rocks hitting above your head and underneath your bed, and then I asked my roommate if he heard it. He said he didn't even know what I was talking about, and just to turn off all the power. It disappeared and turned off the power. It weird, like electronic, you know, and then all the power went off.
Yeah, that you were under spiritual attack there, man, for sure. That's
Well, if I was yelling no, surely something.
yeah.
Oh, and then the last story it was I was on the tour on OP Bridge in 2005, and I had my leader with me, and he was a black guy from Jacksonville, Florida, and I always looked up to him like a big brother. He was real funny and comical. He was like a living version of Tigger, he was kind of like that, and it's always nice to have somebody you can come to when things are bad and tries to give you comical relief, and he's a leader, because it's really hard to find leaders that are actually real friendly and talk to you sometimes. And he would always talk to me about the Bible or Christ, and we were sitting on the bridge, and I said, well, if you could describe me what Jesus is, tell me, in your opinion, how would you describe him? And he says, Jesus is like a sheep herder, and we're a sheep, and whenever we veer off path, he got us to keep us in the path. And I was like, well, yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. And then probably not even 15, 20 seconds later, a sheep herder appeared out of nowhere and was herding sheep across the Chagos River. And I just thought that was so strange because it's a real open area. We would have seen him, and he just showed up out of nowhere. It was just, we were there for several hours too. And I always thought that was strange, And he looked at me and snickered and said, Christ has a sense of humor too. So, I thought that was weird, That kept me hanging on. I was glad I encountered something of the light while I was there to keep my spirit strong to pursue through that darkness. So.
Yeah. The Lord gave him the words. It sounds like to me, and then showed you something that was kind of confirmed it. Very interesting for sure. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you that the Lord has been watching over you, and He's been having mercy on you for your whole life, and He'll finish the work that He started in you. And all you out there in YouTube land, if you've had these kind of battles going on in your life, if you've had like these demonic influences you felt like have been coming at you, and you've had a hard time dealing with it, maybe, or maybe you have dealt with it, I don't know, but if you turn to the Lord, the Bible says that if you believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is Lord, and you believe that God raised him from the dead, then if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, you shall be saved. And the Bible also says that you believe in the heart unto righteousness, you confess with the mouth unto salvation. So if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and you believe that he was raised from the dead, then if you say with your mouth, Jesus is Lord, then God will keep his word. You will be saved. No matter what. It's not a feeling. God keeps his word. And of course that means that you got to know that the Bible says that all people have sinned and fell short of the righteousness of God. So we all are sinners. We've sinned. We've lied. We've, maybe stole something. You've cussed. You've done, fornicated. We've all sinned. So knowing that you sinned, if you go to the Lord and you ask him to forgive you of all your sins, the Bible says he's faithful and just to forgive. He's faithful because he will do it. The Lord's faithfulness is true. It is 100%. He will forgive you according to his word. And then he is just because he has justice in his hand. He has the legal right to do it. So if you just believe he's the Son of God, confess with your mouth, you ask him to forgive you of your sins, you shall be saved. And then no matter what, you have hope. Anytime something comes against you, you can just simply say, Heavenly Father, I come to you in the name of Jesus, and I ask, Lord, that you protect me. That right there would be enough, because the Lord will not fail you. He will protect you. The Bible says, resist the devil and he will flee. So put your trust in the Lord, and I guarantee you that you will always have hope. And and I love when the Lord said, "All you who are weary and downtrodden, brokenhearted, and heavy burden, heavy laden, and all those type of things." He said, "All of you who are basically have all this stuff on you, and you're burdened down." He said, "Come unto me, and I will give you rest." The rest that the Lord gives, that Jesus Christ gives, is unlike any rest that you've ever had before. No night's sleep ever compares. He is our rest. Jesus Christ even became our Sabbath, which is rest. Um, just ask Him to help you. If you're having problems believing it, ask Him to help you believe it. Say, "Lord, I'm not sure. Can you help me believe?" I believe He'll even do that. But anyway, Jonathan, I really appreciate you coming and sharing your stories. It's been fascinating, and you've been just such an awesome guest.
Oh, you are too, man. Thank you for expressing and communicating, spirituality in the Most High. I feel it's needed now in this country more than ever, and I appreciate your time, sir.
Oh, thank you, brother, and just hold on the line there. And everybody out there in YouTube land, thank you for listening. And like I said, if anyone out there has a story they'd like to share here, something that you believe would make a good show, then contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. And I could really use the contributions at this point. You can go to PayPal me link in the description and contribute there. And I appreciate everyone who has done that in the past. And until next time, I'll see you on the next video. God bless and goodbye.